Are you seeking guidance on your Are you seeking guidance on your spiritual journey? Need help with a vexing problem? Missing a loved one and looking for answers? Look no further than Psychic Insights, a small trusted psychic service offering mediums, psychics, and spiritual coaching. This service is managed by Hollis, a gifted psychic medium, astrologer, and a compassionate coach. We are dedicated to helping you navigate your spiritual awakening. At Psychic Insights, we provide medium readings and psychic insight to help you plan for tomorrow and make choices for today. Find the support you need, compassionate grief coaching, and astrological insights to help you spiritually grow and transform. Our professional services include well-managed schedules, recorded sessions, and reliable psychic mediums ready to facilitate your transformational experience. Discover more at psychicinsights.life. Are you seeking guidance on your spiritual journey? Need help with a vexing problem? Missing a loved one and looking for answers? Look no further than Psychic Insights, a small trusted psychic service offering mediums, psychics, and spiritual coaching. This service is managed by Hollis, a gifted psychic medium, astrologer, and a compassionate coach. We are dedicated to helping you navigate your spiritual awakening. At Psychic Insights, we provide medium readings and psychic insight to help you plan for tomorrow and make choices for today. Find the support you need, compassionate grief coaching, and astrological insights to help you spiritually grow and transform. Our professional services include well-managed schedules, recorded sessions, and reliable psychic mediums ready to facilitate your transformational experience. Discover more at psychicinsights.life. Are you seeking guidance on your spiritual journey? Need help with a vexing problem? Missing a loved one and looking for answers? Look no further than Psychic Insights, a small trusted psychic service offering mediums, psychics, and spiritual coaching. This service is managed by Hollis, a gifted psychic medium, astrologer, and a compassionate coach. We are dedicated to helping you navigate your spiritual awakening. At Psychic Insights, we provide medium readings and psychic insight to help you plan for tomorrow and make choices for today. Find the support you need, compassionate grief coaching, and astrological insights to help you spiritually grow and transform. Our professional services include well-managed schedules, recorded sessions, and reliable psychic mediums ready to facilitate your transformational experience. Discover more at psychicinsights.life. Are you seeking guidance on your spiritual journey? Need help with a vexing problem? Missing a loved one and looking for answers? Look no further than Psychic Insights, a small trusted psychic service offering mediums, psychics, and spiritual coaching. This service is managed by Hollis, a gifted psychic medium, astrologer, and a compassionate coach. We are dedicated to helping you navigate your spiritual awakening. At Psychic Insights, we provide medium readings and psychic insight to help you plan for tomorrow and make choices for today. Find the support you need, compassionate grief coaching, and astrological insights to help you spiritually grow and transform. Our professional services include well-managed schedules, recorded sessions, and reliable psychic mediums ready to facilitate your transformational experience. Discover more at psychicinsights.life. Are you seeking guidance on your spiritual journey? Need help with a vexing problem? Missing a loved one and looking for answers? Look no further than Psychic Insights, a small trusted psychic service offering mediums, psychics, and spiritual coaching. This service is managed by Hollis Taylor, a gifted psychic medium, astrologer, and a compassionate coach. We are dedicated to helping you navigate your spiritual awakening. At Psychic Insights, we provide medium readings and psychic insight to help you plan for tomorrow and make choices for today. Find the support you need, compassionate grief coaching, and astrological insights to help you spiritually grow and transform. Our professional services include well-managed schedules, recorded sessions, and reliable psychic mediums ready to facilitate your transformational experience. Discover more at psychicinsights.life. Are you seeking guidance on your spiritual journey? Need help with a vexing problem? Missing a loved one and looking for answers?
Oh my God, you guys, did it keep going? I rebooted my computer because it was so slow. Oh my gosh, it would not let me it wouldn't let me, like, I'm still not fully set up. But you can hear me now. Wow, so weird. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm still trying to get it set up completely, but I am here. I'm sorry. It's just that the computer was completely not, it just was super slow and I couldn't figure out why. So I just turned off the computer. And one of the best things to do if you can't figure out what's going on is to just, reboot, right? So that's what I did. And it's funny. That's weird, huh? Um, so anyway, I'm so glad all of you are here because we're going to talk about death astrology in just a moment. We're just going to finish. I just need to finish broadcasting to the groups. Um, and I'm just trying to finish setting that up. And thank you all for just hanging in there. I was just having a little hang up. And I want to talk about death astrology and everything that has to do with that. Because death astrology, I think, is rarely talked about, especially like in the aftermath of a death. Like sometimes astrologers will talk about it, like because you can look at your astrology chart and make a good guess of how you might die. Um, but that's not what I'm talking about, okay? Although I do use those methods, a lot of the times I'm looking at someone's chart after they've passed, okay? And that's because looking at after they passed, I'm able to see all sorts of things, um, including like I can see what their emotional whatever was in the moment. Like if they did take their own life, now that's not always shown as destiny. Most deaths are destiny. Just going to say that 90% of deaths are destiny. Then there are suicides. Suicides are not usually destiny. Um, but and they don't show up as destiny. But I can see like their but I can see their like I can see their emotional whatever in the time. Like what was going through, what were they going through at the time? What was their emotional um troubles? What was their, if they went through a recent breakup or they were struggling with childhood trauma or those kinds of things. And the reason that's really valuable is because sometimes we don't understand why someone has taken their own life, right? And then also we can see other things. I can see like money problems. Mhm. Um, and so it's okay, Tracy. I'm grateful that you kept sending messages because that's how I had a good idea that it was still running. So welcome everyone. Welcome Kathleen. You're cracking up at me laughing able to get it going. Oh, I'm the tech, but I'm just going to say the most technical thing you can ever do when computers are not working. Ready? This is the best technical advice. Turn it off and then turn it back on. And that's what I did. I did the standard, turn it off, turn it back on, and look at it worked. Um oh, you think I need to rest, Kathleen? What am I going to do while I rest? I don't know. I rest every night. Um, it is a fun topic, Emily. I think it's a beautiful topic, and I think it's like, um, it's what's beautiful about death astrology is that you can look at someone's death chart. So you look at their birth chart and their death chart, and you can tell a lot about their lives. You can tell a lot about what they've accomplished, what they got done, what their destiny was. And if I put your chart with them, which that's why my death astrology chart is a one of a kind, because I'm not just doing their death reading, I'm not just doing mediumship, right? I'm also I'm also doing like synastry of you. Synastry is when we look at two astrology charts next to each other and we look at their synastry. In other words, what was their relationship like? Why were they together? Was there a past life connection? Was there future life connection? Did they okay. Um Emily, it only works on dead people. No. So, what I started off with saying is that most of the time, people use death astrology to predict someone's death, not when, but how. Okay. Now, some people do try to predict when, but I don't think we're supposed to do that. It's incredibly inaccurate. Okay. Um, and then what you do is and then of course people can get natal chart readings. Does everybody know what an astrology natal chart reading is? Does everybody know what that is? I'm assuming you know what that is, and that's probably a bad assumption. Um so um so like so like a natal chart reading is an astrology chart for your life. So when a baby is born, they are born at a particular time and the planets are doing a particular thing. The planets are always moving. The moon is always moving. The sun, all the planets are always moving and can be in different conversations with each other and in different zodiacs in the sky from the perspective of the view of the United States and of North America. Okay. And so of the earth. So when we're looking at the sky, that's astrology, okay? Astrology is noting where are those planets and what influences do they have on us. And so this is an ancient art. So astrology is an ancient science. It's an intuitive science. It has been around since before the Egyptians. The Egyptians used it. Astrology is in the Bible. Astrology is everywhere in our ancient documents. Even the ancient yogis wrote about it. Okay. In the oldest documents, there's still reference to the stars. Humans have always looked to the stars for answers because the stars have led us, right? That's how they found Jesus. That's, um, and that's pretty much what astrology is, okay? And over time it has evolved, and during the Spanish Inquisition, astrologers were often murdered because they were killed. They were because astrology was considered evil because well, they could predict the future. Anything that predicted the future was evil. Okay, so that's how we ended up there. And astrology then in the 17 and 1800s, astrology was very popularly used for medicine. So we could look at your astrology chart and be like, oh, you know what? You're probably having a problem with your gallbladder right now. And I'll tell you what, it's in my chart. Every time I have a gallbladder attack, I'm like, oh, my son's afflicted right now. Okay. Because my son's in Virgo and Virgo rules the gallbladder. Okay. So there's stuff like that. Okay. And it's written in my chart that I'll suffer a very challenging perimenopause. Okay. So these things are all in there. They're in there. Okay. And you can come to understand them, and you start to realize when you start to read charts is that our lives, not everything is destined. There's definitely free will at play here, but it's also about how your life unwinds. Okay. It's about certain things are meant to happen, certain things do happen. And so that's pretty much how death astrology works. Okay. So, hi Hazel. I'm not really doing readings right now. And if you'd like a death reading, it's not something I can really do live here now. Um, like as a freebie. It's you really have to book at my site. It's because it's like origami. You have to slowly. First I talk about the person's life, and I might spend 15 minutes to a half an hour looking at the person's life, like how did they um how did they live, what kind of job did they do, what kind of person were they, and things like that. And then the second part is so then I have their life chart, their natal chart, and everybody has one of those. And then you take a death chart, right? Okay. And that's the day that they died, and it's best to know their birth date, their birth time, and their birthplace, their death date, their death time, and their death place. Now time, do your best with that, okay? And then I take those two charts, and I can see the whole person's life. I can see what window opened. It's sort of like exit points in our lives. Um, Different people have different exit points at different times. Sometimes a big exit point opens and a lot of people die at once, right? Okay. And so that happens, okay? And there are certain planets that rule death. There are certain points in the chart that rule death. And so we can kind of come to terms with, oh, that's why they died. Oh, and then I have the birth chart and the death chart, and we come to understand how they've died. Then what I do is I add on your chart. And then in that helps me recognize what your relationship with them was. And that really, um, that is really powerful because it will sometimes recognize your past lives with this person, your connections with that person, um, your soul contract, twin flames, soulmates, how they helped you, how you helped them, how the two of you did things together, how you helped each other, and maybe how you were toxic for each other. Okay. So there's a couple questions in the chat. You can put your questions. Tracy, I don't know why you can only see your comments. I'm not sure. What page are you on? I'm on like 5 pages plus 2 groups. And you're not in a group. You're on a page. Emily said, Emily, yeah, it's more difficult to do a reading. Hi, Shauna. And oops. Hi, Shauna. How you doing? Okay. So Tracy said, do you do mediumships in this reading as well? Okay. So, that's complicated, Tracy, because I am tapping into your spirit, your loved one, all the time, because it's an intuitive science. So while astrology is very scientific, I still depend on my guides and your guides to come through. And oftentimes, when you're talking about a spirit that has passed on, when you're talking about someone, regardless of the context, they usually come closer. By the way, in case you didn't know that. Okay. So when you're talking about them, you will often be like, oh, okay. So, their spirit will come through. It happens to me all the time. And then sometimes during the reading, what I'll usually do is I'll say, well, the chart says this. And then I'll say, but I sense from your husband that it was more about this and it was this detail or that detail. So sometimes some of the details will come from your loved one, but at all times, your loved one is sort of pointing to the points in the chart that I should be looking at regarding their death, especially if they took their own life or there's something special that you need to know about their passing. And so that's kind of how it works. And Hazel, you didn't give me the time or the city anyway. So, and it's, as I mentioned, Hazel Oswick in the group. I get that you would like a reading for your husband. Is this your son? But at the same time, as I've mentioned a few times now, is that it's very hard to do a death astrology chart reading right here in the group, and you didn't get, I have to have the birth date, the birth time, and the birth place, the death date, the death time, and the death place. And then I also tie your chart into it. So I need your birth time, your birth place, and your birth date. Okay, so, and it's 3 different charts. It's complicated. I do sometimes do famous people's charts because that's a little bit easier to talk about when I'm doing public readings like this. Because Hazel, as I've mentioned, okay, Hazel, are you there? Can you hear me right now? Hazel? Hello? Hi, Hazel. Hi, Hazel. Hi. I'm not sure. Maybe they don't speak English very well. Okay, let me just calm down. Clearly, they were born on January 29th in 2024. Okay. What time were they born? What city were they born in? So, I'm not sure you're getting it, Hazel. You're asking me to do something that's kind of rude. Okay? So, please stop. And so, sorry guys. Sometimes I yes, it's very in depth, Tracy. That's right. It is a lot of work, Naomi. It's just very in depth. It's very like I mean, I can sometimes do some famous people's charts, but I, of course, won't throw a person's chart into there because, of course, there's not really a person. Although I think I did take a look at what's his name? Um, okay, Lady Gaga sang with him. Man, names are really bad for me. Um, who did Lady Gaga sing with? I'm gonna Google it though. Does anybody know? Tony Bennett. Thank you. Okay, so now I'll bring up Tony Bennett's chart, which I think I have. Yes, I do. We don't know what time Tony was born. So this is great because I don't always need to know what time they were born, okay? I can do rectification or we can just do without it. It won't be as accurate if I don't know their time of birth, but so you guys should be able to see Tony Bennett now. This is Tony Bennett's astrology chart. You can see his sun is in Leo. It's at the top of the sky, so that immediately tells me that his death will be very public. And of course it was, right? Okay. And it's in Leo and it's in conjunct Juno. So he'll probably also be married at that time. Okay. And his wife will probably be really hurt from it. He also probably lose his independence as he passes. And since the eighth house is ruled by Taurus, it could be very kind of romantic in the way that he passes. Makes me want to, and it's always interesting to take a look because, and then of course the sun is in Leo, and so Leo is the sun, which is often the heart. But it's not badly afflicted, so it's probably not a heart condition. But I can also see so then as I look at this, I start to go Moon in Gemini, Taurus in the house of death. Oh, we don't know his house of death because, okay, right. So then we have to look at Tony's passing, okay? So we look at, oh, I didn't save Tony Bennett's. Does anybody know what day Tony Bennett died? So we just look it up. So what day did Tony Bennett die? He died July 21st, 2023. I think he died in Manhattan. What city did Tony Bennett die? I'm pretty sure it's in New York City. Okay. So, oops. So you can see this is a bit of work, right? Okay. This is not something easily done. And I don't really have people here to say, oh, Tony Bennett did this or did that, right? Okay. He died on July 21st, 2023. We don't know what time, so we'll put 11:11 a.m. and we'll put New York in New York City. Okay. So, at the time of his passing, you can clearly see here that the sun is on his north node. Wow. Okay. So almost perfectly on there. And so what does that mean? That means, so when the sun is on your north node, which actually happens all the time, it happens every year. But at that time, you can see that Pluto was also next to it. So let me just point to Pluto here, which is right next to it. And the sun was on top of it. And so was Juno, which is marriage. So that would mean his marriage would be greatly affected, of course. And then at the same time, so then you start looking at out here and you start, oh, here's the north node at 29 degrees. And you can see that the sun is squaring the nodes, right? 30, 60, 90. Yep. The sun is squaring the nodes. Pluto is squaring the nodes. So Tony Bennett died during a time that there was a huge exit window for a lot of people to die. Okay. And those exit windows happen, not a lot, but sometimes. And usually, if a person is already sick or already close to death, then they might pass during that time. Okay. Which is actually kind of helpful to know if someone's like suffering from cancer or something, right? And interestingly enough, that during that time, the nodes were also squaring his nodes, okay? And so the nodes are about destiny and about past life. So it was his destiny to pass, okay? And then there's several placements in this chart in the South Node and Libra tells me, oh, there were some sort of relationships that hopefully ended appropriately. Okay. And that's when we bring in, that's when we bring in, what's her name? Lady Gaga, right? And that's when we bring in Lady Gaga, right? Because the two of them had a bit of a friendship before he passed, okay? And look at that. Their nodes are perfectly matched, which tells me that from a past life, they had promises, they had connections together, and there was something about the two of them that was meant to be together. Okay, there was something about their relationship that was meant to come through. Now, if I spent a little bit more time on this, an entire hour, we would see more of exactly what that was and what the details. Um, are we always destined to die eventually? Yeah, Naomi, you don't get out of life alive. We all die. I'm not sure you worded that question correctly. I mean, you do know that we all die, I'm sure, right? Uh, Yes, exactly, Tracy. I would need to break it down slowly. And that's why I say that it's very hard to do that here live in this reading. I can tell you about it and I can teach you about it, but um like trying to break it down for somebody in this setting I I think would be out of integrity. Because I wouldn't have the time or the space, and it wouldn't be fair for, us all to be spending an hour looking at so and so's chart, um, and talking about their death and talking about their relationship, and a lot of times, without even trying, I usually end up with really intimate details that can sometimes be really, um, sometimes embarrassing. Sometimes they're so intimate, you're like, "Nobody knew that but us." Um Yeah, exactly, Tracy. Most people do need to digest it a little at a time. And that's kind of like what happens. So, like, that's why I record it because I'm like, how about I record this so that you can have this and listen to it over and over again. And I'll tell you what, people have come back to me like a year later and they say, "Hey, Hollis, you remember that reading you did for me?" And I'm like, "No." I remember you, but I don't remember the reading. And they're like, "Well, these are all the things you told me, and wow, and now it's starting to make sense, and it's been like it's taken me 6 months to get that." Okay? And so it's totally like Yeah, it's just hard. It's just hard to digest. You're right, Tracy. It takes digestion time. Exactly. Somebody says, okay. Thank you, Kristen. Oh, I try to be really patient. Some days I'm not as patient as I should be. Um, it is very a private thing, Kristen. It's very private. I've tried to like do it live and it just feels wrong. It feels like something I shouldn't be doing. Um, I thought about recently, I did recently think, just yesterday, I was thinking, you know what I could do is maybe run a contest and let somebody let me do their death chart cold live and y'all could watch. But I don't know how interesting that would be for you guys. So, um, so Naomi says, I know that we will die. Do we have a predicted death date? Okay, so you have a predicted how death. There's usually numerous ways that you could die. Um, um, and you know, there could be numerous ways that you could die, but the date isn't usually because there's so many exit points. So for instance, Naomi, I could see that you'll have a problem with your lungs and you're a smoker. And then let's say you're 30, you go to the doctor says, hey, if you don't quit smoking, you're probably going to get lung cancer. And you say, oh shit, I better stop smoking. And you quit smoking. And then later on, a door opens, but because you quit smoking, you don't jump through. Get it? So, like, sometimes people with drug problems will get lots of warnings ahead of time. Hey, if you don't get sober, if you don't stop messing with this drug, it's probably going to take your life. Yet they keep doing it, they keep doing it, they keep doing it. And then boom, they die because the window opened and they're still doing it. And the universe says, okay, so you want to leave now. So go ahead. The window's open. Go ahead. It's an exit point. This is a time for you to leave then. And so this happens based on free will. And so the date is adjusted based on free will. And that happens a lot. People choose not to exercise. They choose not to take care of their heart. They choose not to take care of their blood sugars. And then there's weird stuff. Okay. Then there's people that don't do anything. Me and Brighthawk were just talking about this. Then there's people in the world that we clearly know never take care of themselves. And they just go on forever. But they don't usually live a pretty high quality life, okay? And they have a lot of health problems and they haven't done anything to take care of themselves, okay? Like they don't eat healthy, they just, okay? And why do they seem to like live forever? And sometimes I think that there's some suffering to be done. So I think it's more complicated than we can predict. And so I think it's unfair. Uh yes, Tracy, drugs that are laced, but you know that the potential is there for those drugs to be laced, right? And you're still doing it. So the universe usually warns you. Usually the universe warns you. And you choose what to listen to, and there's usually different varying degrees of that, right? So those are exit points, and at which point you choose to pass or stay. Yeah, you're kind of playing with fire sometimes, Tracy. Yeah, exactly. Tracy said playing with fire. Yeah, it's like playing with fire, meaning like, if you're doing drugs that, okay, if you're doing drugs that are that could be laced or whatever, then the universe is going to warn you before it's time for you to pass. Okay? Yeah, you're playing Russian roulette. Exactly, Tracy. So it's, it's a lot of okay. Nana said, you talk about windows, Hollis. Is there a certain number of windows in our lifetime? That could be hard to determine, Nana. That's a great question, though. I've never tried to count how many windows are in the average person's life, and it might depend on how long you live, because they do happen. Like, at some point, the sun is going to come into a square with the nodes. At some point, like right now, Pluto's in Capricorn. And so when Pluto moves over the line into Capricorn and then back into Aquarius, and when it goes forward and direct and retrograde, sometimes people could suddenly pass. And that's challenging. Okay. Um, and um, it's challenging because we don't, most of us, I do, but most people don't know what's happening in the sky at any given moment because we're not connected to astrology anymore. So most people don't bother to pay attention. And so ever, um, if you ever wondered, like, when things are happening in your life, and it's not just death, it's everything. When you lose somebody, and sometimes it can look like a window, but it's not necessarily a window. It's actually the moment that you lost somebody else. So you're still dealing with death, but it's not your death. You're dealing with other people's deaths, right? Or and then there's other things that come up in your life, like big changes in your work, or uh, children or grandchildren, or health problems or money challenges. And all of those things are all shown in your astrology chart, all of them, every single thing. Even your personality conflicts, your conflicts with your neighbors, politics, money, your values, how they change over time, your siblings, your community, your home, your like if you've had childhood trauma, all of these things, creativity, romance, day-to-day life, your work in the world, your relationships, the time you spend with other people, not just in romantic relationships, but other relationships, as well as, like, then there's like death and taxes, and sex is in your astrology chart. Spirituality is in your astrology chart. And then of course there's career and which way you're going and things you're supposed to do, your destiny, people and then there's a whole bunch of things you don't know. And psychic points are pointed at, as well as like your relationship with the system and institutions. And so there's so much in one chart that you can find, Nana, that I think it would be hard to determine how many windows, and it might depend on when you live. So, like, maybe people in the 1800s had more windows than the people in 2000. Get it? Yeah. So it just kind of depends on who you are. Um, okay, so let's talk about murder. A mother's pride. Great. That's a great question. So murder is so a mother's pride asked, what about murder? It shows oftentimes in the chart. Most murders that I look at are often karmic. Not all of them. Like, sometimes I'll be like, was this person involved in, like, drugs? And I can see that they're involved in working with drugs and alcohol, so that's kind of like playing Russian roulette, right? And then in the fact that they were murdered, they were dealing drugs, so it's kind of like probably not a good industry. It's like their industry in their work in that industry made a higher risk, right? And then sometimes I can see that it was karmic, like in a past life, something. And so they're paying off a karmic debt a lot of times. And then sometimes it's because of their relationship with the murderer. Sometimes with murderers, I like to know the murderer's birthday, if possible. Um, because I can look at the synastry and I can see what their relationship was. Did they have some past life connections? Were they just did they just hate each other? And very rarely, but I can think of at least one where it wasn't meant to be for that guy to die. And it was not destiny. But you could clearly see that he was having problems um, with a relationship, and he had gone into a bar where his girl was, in his eyes, cheating on him. And then he pulled the guy outside, and the guy shot him. So, that's kind of different, right? Right, A Mother's Pride? Like, it's not right either way. It's never right to take another person's life. The other thing you should know about when a person takes another person's life is their soul is split, even if it's in a war. And then we have two souls living side by side, and they're usually soulmates. And so if you ever wondered about soulmates, that's why and who they are. Um okay, how accurate would my death chart be if I didn't know the time I was born? It would still be like 80-85% accurate, Tracy. It's more like 90-95% accurate if I know the time of everybody's birth and death. Okay. Um Death Astrology, Leonard, is when I do these one of a kind readings. I'm the only person I know of that does them. And I do death chart readings of a person that has passed, and I help you understand why the person passed and what you're supposed to learn from it or get from it or how you're supposed to grow from it, or trying to understand their passing a little deeper, sort of the universe's perspective of your person's passing and your relationship with them and their destiny. Was it destined? So, how many times do you think we get reincarnated? Kareen, that's like the $1,000,000 question. Probably like a million. We don't know. Thousands of times, probably. My thought is 12 times. We start from Aries being a young soul, then Pisces being the last old soul. Some people do believe that, Corrine. You're not the only one that believes that. I've heard that before. I don't know, because I think sometimes some people might have to spend 2 or 3 lives being in Aries, for instance, or being a Taurus. Um, when you hit Pisces, you should have completed your life paths. Yeah, there's some holes in that that don't quite work out very well. Um, because then we also have to think about gender, because that definitely has a huge influence, especially on humans today, as well as class. Um, and I don't. And Pisces, while they might have an old soul, they don't always pass in a way that would say that they're enlightened. So would it match with ancient texts? When a Pisces passes, they don't necessarily pass as an enlightened being, right? So that's the part that doesn't quite make sense there, Corrine. In fact, Corrine, a lot of Pisces sometimes struggle with alcohol, and that's certainly not enlightenment, right? So, I will agree that Pisces often sometimes seem like old souls. But I wouldn't say that they're enlightened. I wouldn't say any particular zodiac sign is enlightened. I think enlightenment is when we overcome our zodiac sign, right? When we are more than just human, when we overcome our human condition. Yeah, Corinne, does that make sense? And so when we die an enlightened being, then we become an angel. And maybe that's why babies come through and have to do that last thing or two, and they're miscarried or aborted or whatever, and a baby dies. That's because they're an angel and they're trying to become an enlightened being. I'm not sure, Corrine. Those are hard questions to answer, but I think we live many, many lives. Okay, so Mother's Pride is asking me a question here, so let's take a look. I'm assuming it's a she since it's a mother. She says, my son, oops, I hit the wrong one. My son was not known to the murder, nor any drugs or alcohol involved. He was murdered by the killer on February 29th, and it was the murderer's birthday. Mother's Pride, I'm almost guessing that that's destined from a past life. No, it's not your karma. It's not your karma, Mother's Pride. It's your son's karma. No. You're probably a healer or something. You're probably just put there to experience it for some reason. You could be soulmate with your son, or something like that. It would be hard to say without looking at your astrology chart, without having a further conversation with you. But you could be soulmates. Remember what I just said soulmates were? A soul that was murdered, or a soul that murders, that kills someone, even in a war. And the soul is split at that time. If you murder someone else, your soul splits. And then you become two souls. And somehow the karma has to get weighed back in the other direction. It doesn't make you a bad person now. We are not who we were in a past life. So that's the other weird thing that happens when I start talking about past lives with people, is they're like, I'm not a murderer. And I'm like, of course you're not. You might have been in a past life. I was a terrible, awful person in a past life. I was a abusive man in a past life, I'm pretty sure. And that's why in this lifetime I've experienced the abuse of men. And now in this lifetime I'm meant to stand up to men. And that's my karmic, it's like my karmic debt, right? And I'm kind of paying it off. I'm paying it, meaning I'm paying for it to be taken off of the scales so that I can have good karma, so that I can get closer to enlightenment. Okay? And this is more of like Buddhist perspective stuff. Buddhism talks a lot about us living many lifetimes together. And Buddhism can go together with any spiritual system, including Christianity. And the beautiful thing about Buddhism is that it's ancient, it's been around for a long time. And for me, it makes more sense. Okay. So, Naomi, I'm sure you have many past lives. It's interesting, in your astrology chart, it will show me if the past lives are hidden from you for a particular reason. I will say that as I've gotten older, I've had variety of experiences that have shown me my past lives. Like I had this experience, this health problem I was having. My heart was racing really fast and I was shaking all over. And first of all, I met Ganesha, and which is a god. It's an Indian god or a Buddhist god. I don't know why it froze. Naomi, I'm still here. Can you hear me? Um Anyway, so in this vision, I started to see not only Ganesha, excuse me, but I also met myself. Okay. I met myself, and I met myself as an old Buddhist monk, which I thought was pretty interesting to meet myself as a Buddhist monk. So I've been a Buddhist monk in a past life, but why am I not? Doesn't being a Buddhist monk lead you to enlightenment? Well, not necessarily. It can, but um, I'm not getting drained, Kareen. No, it's called perimenopause, sweetie. um, so I'm pretty sure I was a Buddhist monk in a past life, but I'm not meant to be a monk in this lifetime because in the past life, when I was a Buddhist monk, I really had a struggle with missing out on the best and worst of life. So in this lifetime, I've lived the absolute worst and some of the absolute best. And I think my life is meant to be that way. Okay. Green, sometime you're going to have perimenopause. And it's exhausting. But the best thing to do is just live your life and it will go away eventually. Um, A soulmate, as I said, is a soul. So the soul starts out, let's say, 1700s. There's a war. Person kills a person. Person, then when they die, their soul splits. Okay? And then there's these two souls that kind of live a few lifetimes together. They might be friends, they might be lovers, they might kind of know each other, they might be business partners, they could be family members or something like that, okay? And then they kind of live together, right? And they learn from each other over many lifetimes. Eventually, what happens is those two souls come together as one and they'll live a whole life together and then die together. And when that happens, like they could live like 30, 40 years together and then boom, they die together. And that's because their souls have become one again. So they're on their way to enlightenment. So that's the complicated part about soulmates. So, um, I want to know more about my karmic relationship with my uncle, whose death date, 1974, is close to my son's birth date, 1984. Huh. Interesting. Elizabeth, if you want to know that, that would be a great synastry to look at. We can look at synastry. We can do a synastry astrology reading with everybody's birthday. Even if you don't know the time, like of your uncles, especially maybe you know your sons, but not your uncles. Um, and that would be fine if we know somebody's. And we could probably even include you in there too, Elizabeth. I'm betting there's some sort of like cosmic alignment. And I bet we could take a look at it. They have the same name too, Elizabeth. That's weird. I would definitely say they probably have some sort of karmic. Did your uncle die before your son was born? Just curious. Good luck at the cardiologist, Tracy. I hope it goes better than my appointment did. um okay, let's see. Corrine said the twin flames, what do they mean? Okay, so twin flames is like when two people, you can see it in the astrology chart, and the difference is that so soulmates usually when they come together, they can kind of they look like and act like they're cut from the same cloth. And when I say that to them, they're like, yeah, they really resonate with that. Now, twin flames, on the other hand, are two people that when they're both in their best higher self, they can raise each other up in a really good way. So when both flames are lit, they come together and make each other's light brighter, and that's a twin flame relationship. Now, sometimes that goes wrong. And so, like I said, there's always free will, right? Free will is always at play here. So free will can happen, and free will, a person can choose not to work on themselves or or to not do the work that they have to do and put out their flame. Maybe they're addicted to drugs or something, and the other person can feel very lost without them. Okay. But I will say that there are often, because of the way war and stuff like that has been part of the human past, that there are often 2 and 3 soulmates, and there are often more than one twin flame. There's often lots of twin flames. Okay, and then there's soul contracts. Why are we here on Earth? What is our purpose? Well, that's in your astrology chart. Everybody has a different purpose, but generally, everybody is here to evolve as human beings. We are meant to evolve into higher vibrating beings, and we are doing that. I mean, 100 years ago, we used to think it was okay to enslave Black people, right? We used to think it was okay for a husband to rape his wife. So we've gotten better, and we'll continue to get better. Okay. So that's what I mean by, like, we're evolving all the time. We're constantly evolving. Just like right now, we're evolving past gender, right? We don't need gender, but some people think we do, but we really don't. And we're evolving past it. That's the gender revolution. We're evolving into better harmony with our planet. We are, those are the revolutions that you're seeing happening right now. Okay. And that's our purpose. Our purpose is to become an enlightened being. That's our purpose. So you can be an angel that walks here on earth. Your great grandfather too. Wow, Elizabeth. He died 10 years before. I wonder if it's the same dude. If it's the same soul. Is that possible? I hope your heart is just fine, Tracy. Wow. Tracy, I'm sure nothing like what just happened to me will happen to you. Yeah, you're welcome, Corrine. I agree. I agree. This is great information. I think more of us should look at our astrology chart. In fact, I don't know how y'all live without not knowing your astrology chart. How do you get through life? How do twins charts work? Okay, so this is a very common question. At first, I thought she was talking about twin flames, but then I was like, no, wait a minute. Okay, how do twins charts show? Twin charts work if time of birth is used for the chart. Many twins' paths are very different. Indeed, Patty. There's a couple things at play here. First of all, free will is always at play. I've said that a couple hundred times now. So free will is always at play. Person's soul always has free will to choose how they express things. Oftentimes, there are numerous expressions to one sign. So, for instance, Virgo, it could be that you're very into cooking food or harvesting herbs or working with animals or something like that. Okay. And so each sign has like a list of things like that. And so first of all, there's that. And a lot of planets are kind of like that too. Second, what I can do with twins charts, which is always really fascinating, is to take a look at the time, because there's usually a couple minutes difference. And so sometimes there are differences in their charts, even if there's just a few minutes difference, because the planets are always moving. Okay. Babies are not usually born in the same minute. Okay. And then, on top of that, there's free will, and then there's the difference in the different, like, sort of expressions of a chart. And every single zodiac sign has a light and a shadow. And sometimes I notice that, like, it's not always like one person is light and one person is dark. It's never clear cut like that. It's more like, so they're both Virgos, for instance, okay? And one of them will be very like light expressive about the Virgo, and then the other one will be more obsessive about organizing things or something, which would be like the shadow of Virgo, okay, or controlling or something like that, right? Okay, so then they hold the shadow, but then their rising sign is, let's say, Leo, okay? They're Virgo, Leo rising. And their Leo, like the one that's light in Virgo will have the shadow parts of Leo, which are like which is like arrogance and know it all and kind of almost can seem a little narcissistic at times. And then the other one will have the light of Leo. They'll be like lifting everyone up and a really good leader. And so, like, that's what ends up happening with twins, is that sometimes they'll express the light and dark of the same sign. So they're both expressing the sign, but they're one's expressing the light and one's expressing the dark. And we're more than just our sun sign all the time. We're our sun sign, we're our rising, we're our moon sign, our Mars, our Venus, our Jupiter. There's so much more than just your sun chart. That's very, very limited, shallow. It's like what we call bubblegum astrology. Okay. Meaning it doesn't last very long. It's like chewing a piece of bubblegum, right? Yeah, Kareen, I have a class on my website. I have a class at my website that does that. Explains the basics of astrology. And it's not something I can do in an hour. There's I think 5 or 6 classes. It comes with 5 or 6 classes. It comes with little cheat sheets like this that tell you how to remember the symbols and what stuff like that. And there's also it also comes with 2 coaching sessions with the class. So you can order that at my website. It's in the digital download area. And if you look on Divine Androgen page, there's some coupons. There's a $50 off coupon. I think it's called Jupiter. Yeah, see, Naomi, your sister is on the cusp of Leo and Virgo. So that means she's going to be a Leo Virgo cusp. So she's going to have some Leo traits and some Virgo traits. And it's interesting which ones we choose to express. Oh, Stephanie, you're interested. Right? I'm an auntie to 2 Aquarius non-identical twins. So, Stephanie, I've done an astrology reading for twins before. And like adult twins. And it was fascinating. And that's exactly what I explained is what happened. So, like, one would have the shadow of a sign and one would have the light of the sign. And it was hilarious. It was hilarious how it all came forth. And right. And then I could tell who was going to be a little bit faster by who was born first. And then sometimes that will also separate like the moon sign because the moon moves very fast. Okay. Sometimes people are born at the time when the moon moves. So it's fascinating. It's definitely a fascinating subject. Cassandra Lynn said, I had a friend's mom do my chart about 20 years ago, and I still go back and read it, usually once or twice a year, just to see what's going on. It's very interesting. Yes, that's right, Cassandra, and that's why I say, like, you should have if you were driving across the country, would you only check the map once? Well, I sure as hell wouldn't. I would check the map over and over and over again. And that is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to look at your astrology chart all the time so that you can be like, oh, okay. And then, like, if you come to me, what usually happens is I'll look at it and I'll give you dates and I'll say, okay, so around this day you might experience this. This would be a good time to apply for that job. This would be a good time to ask for a promotion or a raise. This would be a good time to talk to that boyfriend about, taking your relationship the next step. This would be a good time for this. This would be a good time for that. And that's really what astrology is about. Okay. In fact, if Biden had asked an astrologer, like Ronald Reagan did, he would have found out that that day was not a good day to debate Donald Trump. Not a good day. But a lot of times people don't ask astrology. And yes, some politicians have used astrology, like Ronald Reagan. They use astrology to know to make good choices, to just, to have a better feeling or idea. So the thing about the death chart reading is that it's one of a kind. I'm the only person in the world that does it. It takes about an hour for it to really unfold. It's very in depth. You'll probably have to go back and listen to it numerous times. Usually people say, wow, I have a lot to digest right now. So I'm going to only recommend it for people. Agreed, Corinne. Oh, no, no. Corinne, Biden's Mars was in opposition. So his natal Mars and the transiting Mars were across the sky from each other. Mars was in opposition. It's not a good time to fight. So that's what happened. And I think I'm pretty sure Biden's natal Mars is in Scorpio. So or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But when you looked at the day, you were like, "Oh, Biden." And it was like in it was in the natal, the transiting one was in his 12th house. So he didn't see it coming. So there were probably things he didn't see coming. Sort of like you can get punched in the face. But yeah, so politicians, famous people, all kinds of people use astrology for their day-to-day life. I use astrology for my day-to-day life. I try not to do much of anything without checking into it. So, um, when I Heidi, it's in my website, but I think it's like less than $100. But Heidi's in Mystical Connection, so I'll give you a link to my website. It's Divine Androgen. But I'm the only person that in the world that I know that does it. I know that there are some people, of course, like I said, there are people that will try to look at your death chart and try to predict your death. But like I said, it's probably not a good idea because there's lots of exit points, and the exit point that they're seeing could not be your death. It could just be a time of major change. Anyway, you can book one at my website at divineandrogen.com. And that's where it's called a death chart or death with mediumship, astrology with mediumship, because I do connect to your loved one on the other side. And they do usually kind of guide me. They'll be like, look at my Jupiter, look at my Jupiter, and no, of course they don't have to know astrology before they passed, but spirits don't have to speak your language to speak it. When a spirit's on the other side, they know you speak astrology language, so they'll try to speak your language. Sort of like if a person speaks Spanish, I can still channel what they're saying, even though they only spoke Spanish here on Earth. Oh, I was in an astrology club, Elizabeth said. I was in an astrology club interest 6th grade group. My school used to have different groups every day. Oh my gosh, I would have so much fun talking to a bunch of young people about astrology. That's actually what I think, Elizabeth. I actually think that children should study their astrology chart. I'm hoping to teach my grandson his astrology chart. He does know. He's so hilarious. He's 6 years old. I sent him his astrology chart and I said, "Do you know what this is?" And he's like, "Yeah," like that. And he's like, "I'm a Virgo rising, and so is everybody else." No, only. So he was right. He is a Virgo rising, but it's actually just his sister and Bright Hawk and him are all Virgo risings. Um, this weird thing, huh? Anyway, sorry, there's something going on outside, like animals or something. Can you guys hear it? You knew you were interested, Elizabeth. Yeah, I can't blame you. Astrology is absolutely fascinating. It's a constant, it's really fascinating to learn exactly how it influences our life. And does it influence our life, or is it instead just a reflection of our life in the sky and it's meant to guide us? I think that's more of the truth, that it's not that it's causing it. It's not that Mercury retrograde is causing your car to break down. It's more like when Mercury is retrograde, it is reflected here on Earth. And so we feel it. And then as a result, things like that happen. And if we use astrology in the right way, in a good way, and we stay more, if we stay more present with it, we'll better be able to be prepared for whatever will happen. Um, Elizabeth, I wouldn't say it's mathematical. Very little math. Yeah, Corrine, it's more of a teacher in a way of teaches your life path. Exactly. Um, Elizabeth saying that it's mathematical. I don't think it's mathematical. Each piece of the pie is 30 degrees. Like that might scare you away, but it just means that the only numbers that are really involved are the degrees that the planets are at. So, um, if you can count by threes, you don't even have to be able to. And these days, you don't even have to do that, right? Okay. So, like, if you look at this chart, I'm going to show you Tony Bennett's chart. Here it is. You can see that there are numbers, and those are the degrees into Virgo that it's at, right? Or the degrees in Leo. That's what those numbers are, how far into it is. Now, I wouldn't really say it's mathematical, I guess, if you look at these things in the middle, right? And, but it tells you right here in this chart what all of the aspects are. These are aspects, these lines. They're aspects. And these over here in this little, in this grid are just, it tells you. So, like, if it's a little blue triangle, it's a trine. And so that tells you it's an easy conversation. If it's a square, it's a square. And these other ones, they're just symbols. That's all. They just represent different numbers or different degrees away from each other. That's all. That's the only math that comes up. That's the only math. That's it. Other than that, there's no other math. So I don't exactly think it's mathematical because I'm not really strong at math, Elizabeth. Right, Mama Cole? Right, Mama Cole? Of course he's a Virgo, right? Oh no. Yeah, so astrology is a lot of fun. I'd be happy to do a death chart reading for you. I've set my link up, and maybe I'll do another one of these at some point. Maybe I'll do a contest or something. I have to figure out how to do that. Anyway, I'll talk to the rest of you. Have a great day. Remember, you can get the astrology death chart reading at my website, and that's divineandrogen.com. And I look forward to looking at your astrology and any other kind of astrology, including like synastry or just your natal chart. If you want me to look at your year to come and I can be like, oh, watch out for this day, watch out for that day, or this is a good day for this and this is a good day for that. Okay. All right. And I hope all of you have a beautiful day. Enjoy your weekend. We should get a little retrieve, a little bit of a reprieve from the solar eclipse. Sweetness to your weekend. Bye bye.
Are you seeking guidance on your spiritual journey? Need help with a vexing problem? Missing a loved one and looking for answers? Look no further than Psychic Insights, a small trusted psychic service offering mediums, psychics, and spiritual coaching. This service is managed by Hollis Taylor, a gifted psychic medium, astrologer, and a compassionate coach. We are dedicated to helping you navigate your spiritual awakening. At Psychic Insights, we provide medium readings and psychic insight to help you plan for tomorrow and make choices for today. Find the support you need, compassionate grief coaching, and astrological insights to help you spiritually grow and transform. Our professional services include well-managed schedules, recorded sessions, and reliable psychic mediums ready to facilitate your transformational experience. Discover more at psychicinsights.life.